In this clip, we're going to be talking about our toolbar and our basic transformations. Okay, so we already started a composition, we brought in some assets, and we did a few other things. Right below our menu, we have our toolbar. And our toolbar can also be moved to a different location if you want. And this can be adjusted, but our toolbar has a few different selections, like our selection tool. And if you hover over any of these tools, you will see that you will get the name and the selection, and pretty much most likely the name will give you an idea of what it does. So in this case, we have the selection tool, and pretty much our selection tool does that, and it lets us select items. If our items are smaller, we could select a few different items in our screen, and you can see that it changes once it starts to get highlighted. For example, there something else got highlighted, and then if I hover over this one, I select it, the other one changes. So it helps us select, maybe even move if you'd like to, but that's a different transform option. We'll talk about that in a second. We also have our hand option, but our hand tool basically lets us move all the canvas, sort of like it's a zoom in and out tool. We control not anything inside, but the actual window itself. So right next to that, we have our zoom tool, and our zoom tool is kind of not useful if you're using a mouse with a roll on it, with the scroll on it. So pretty much you can scroll with the mouse itself. The difference is that once you scroll, you would have to middle mouse and drag. So basically, if you middle mouse, you activate your hand tool. So for example, what I do is I zoom it in and out. Pretty simple, I think, if I middle mouse scroll and middle mouse hold. But you still have the zoom option tool, so you can left click to zoom in. Next to that, we have a rotation tool. The rotation tool is activated with the layer itself. It doesn't rotate the world like the hand does. The hand actually controls basically your entire window, but the rotate tool controls the layer itself. So here's a good time to start talking about our transformations. So once I start activating either the rotation or the selection tool, changes will be made. And if we go to our info, you can see that, changes are made on our screen. We can see that our X and our Y position once we hover over it, and the color of it itself. But for example, if I select explosion 2, you can see that on the info it changes again, and it also gives us some information as where position and a time information. So changes are made, and those changes can be found in the timeline itself. If we click this little right arrow, we can bring down our transform options of our layer. So if I drop down the menu, we can see that we have anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. These are the basic ones. So the rotation can be changed with the rotation tool, which is the W as a shortcut, and that one I just rotated the explosion 1. So I'm gonna hit R, and you will see that it will bring down the rotation of that layer itself. Now at this point I don't have any information because all my information is closed, but once I start opening my information, like my layer styles and the parent information, you will see that all that information starts becoming available. So those are buttons that we talked about in previous clips. So now you know when they become useful or not. So you can see that if I start rotating, this information changes. So also if I grab my selection tool and I select my explosion 2, you will see that the position, the numbers will start to change as well. And I can change those values also from here as well. If I left click and drag, I can change the scales. Rotation, also I can change it from here without the rotation tool. And opacity. After our rotation tool, we also have our camera options. The camera tool right now won't do anything for us because there's no 3D layers available. There's no 3D options. So until something becomes a 3D, camera won't do anything. So we will leave that for another clip. After that, we have our anchor point, and that keyboard shortcut is the Y. And the anchor point basically works with the layer. We can move the anchor point from any position we'd like. So, for example, if I grab my rotation tool, I hit W on my keyboard to use the shortcut, and I start moving it around, you will see that it rotates from the center. However, if I hit Y and select my anchor point tool, I change my anchor point, then I hit Y on my keyboard to change to my rotation tool, and I change it. Now the anchor is different, so now it will rotate from that position. So I'm gonna hit Control Z and Control C to undo that. So with that, those are our basic tools and our basic transformations. So play with all these settings so you can start getting familiar with them, and I'll see you in the next clip.